Welcome to the Crowd Score Podcast. Kevin Stewart, Reggie Walker. Reggie, we are joined by a guest this week with a lengthy resume. 6th overall pick in the 1995 NFL Draft. 14 NFL seasons with the Rams, Titans, Dolphins, and Bucks. 2-time Pro Bowler, NFL All-Pro, Super Bowl 34 champion with the St. Louis Rams, college and NFL analyst with the CBS Sports Network, and former Florida Gator, Kevin Carter. Kevin, thank you for coming on with us this morning.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Kev, I'll tell you one thing. I was going to wear this shirt, if you can see it here, my Tennessee Volunteers. But
no,
I saw a tweet.
Why?
I saw a tweet you posted. I'm a Tennessee fan. I saw a tweet you posted last week about John Collins after the Hawks beat the Sixers in the second round of the NBA playoffs. He was wearing a photo of himself posterizing Joel Embiid, and I decided, you know what, I'm going to be the better man. But go Vols.
Yeah, I had to post something on that, man. Look, I had nothing against him personally. I actually like their young team. I think the Hawks were really dynamic, and this was kind of an early stage push for a group of young superstars that were able to, in an atypical year, I guess after COVID, after your LeBrons and superstars have fallen by the wayside because they played way too much basketball in a 1-year calendar period.
Mm-hmm.
And I was actually really applauding the Hawks for getting that far and being that team. But where I thought they were going wrong is the whole, crap talking. It's like, look, dude, if you're still worried about who you just beat, who you just retired, they're going home. Like they're heading to Cancun to ride on the banana boat and high five themselves. And then thank God for another year in the league. And they're going to rest their soul a little bit. If you're still worried about them, you're not worried about the person in front of you. You're not trying to get to the top of the mountain. You're not trying to do it. You're not trying to do it big. I mean, look, I'm just saying it's just my personal opinion, and I had to get passionate about it because to me, it's about making memories. Here you are in a blessed position where you have an opportunity to do something that few people never even give themselves the opportunity to actually accomplish. And look, I've been there. I've gone to the top of the mountain, and it is good. And I know that as the years go by, the further you get away from something like that, it means more to have accomplished that. So, yeah, keep it perspective, young man. Collins, Hawks, they ain't ready yet. That's why they ain't going to win this year. I stand by that.
Well, they are down 2-1 in Milwaukee right now, and it doesn't look too good. Kevin, we are about a month out from training camp. We just finished up minicamp here in Charlotte about a week ago. So take me back to your playing days. And you're about a month out from minicamp. What's the mindset? Like, what's your mental approach to your personal life, your personal workout, diet, et cetera, going forward?
Well, personally, you're just getting your affairs in order. I mean, the game is different now, I guess, than it has been in recent years. I mean, training is more adaptable to player schedule. These programs are better. They have more support in the individual teams. But even back when I played, your mindset was the same. You're working on your craft. You're in the middle of the meat of your training. April, May, and June, like you have to be hitting it hard from a physical standpoint, no matter where you are in your career. Obviously, the cumulative training starts earlier and changes as you get older. But this time of the year, you're pretty much fine-tuning everything that you're getting ready to try to accomplish. This is your June minicamp. Your June minicamp was usually your last snapshot of your team before you went to camp, before you went home, got your affairs in order, seeing your grandma, seeing your mom for the last time, and got everything kind of battened down, and you went to work for real at the end of July. So your mindset is now it's pretty much at the apex of your competition. So how you're feeling, getting all your nicks and pains taken care of, your off-season procedures, this is where you want to be feeling your best right before you turn it on for real and go into training camp. And you also want to have a lot of the continuity of new teammates, of guys that have come in from other teams. You want them acclimated to the surroundings, not only the weather and the surroundings and where they're living, but you want them pretty much ingratiated after having gone through an off-season training program with their new teammates. You have to build that chemistry, that trust, that inherent, on the field presence with possibly a new teammate, or surroundings. That's what this time in the off season is for. But right now, you're pretty much finishing that process off, and you're looking forward to training camp.
Kev, it's always like fascinating to get in the mind of these athletes and look at how everything's being approached. To add on to that, because you talked about the training programs, now so many guys have their own trainer, and then you have the team has their own people as well. How much of that has kind of made it in some ways easier, right, for guys to stay in shape because they have someone to keep them accountable, but also harder because the philosophies may be a little bit different?
It's gotten better because I guess, teams don't have to keep tabs on guys as much as they had to anymore. They had to incentivize contracts and put it in as to where you will be a part of this offseason program. The only problem with that is, you may not share the same philosophy as that trainer, as that strength coach for your team. And that's where, sort of the conflict comes in with older players or guys who have established regimens, to get them ready. For me personally, I could work out, for any strength coach, but he had to understand there were things that I was going to do and not going to do within his program that I needed. And so when you get to a certain point, you can garner that type of respect, and you can put in your contract, yeah, I'll be a part of your program, but I'm going to do my own program. And so that communication has to be had, before you walk in the door. But usually, I think these days it's really, really gotten a lot better and specialized. I mean, they give you the flexibility to work with your guy. A lot of people have, there's a group here in Tampa that my son, who's a tight end at Dartmouth, has had a chance to work with, and it's Yo Murphy. And he brings in the Randy Moss passing camp, and, that whole group. They had Devontae Smith and all these top players that were getting ready to get drafted. And he was able to get in with that group when they were training in the off season and getting ready for the combine. Those types of groups that you have, I have good friends in Nashville and that have the whole tight end university with George Kittle and those guys going on. Those different type of enrichment camps are really amazing now that weren't really in place when I was playing. I mean, Reg, you remember back in the days, man, you had to look around for that specialized training. You had to look around and really align yourself in the off season with certain dudes who was trying to get it like you, and, you may meet those guys, you might come across them in the off season or during preseason or whatever, but establishing those relationships, I think was, we were kind of at the cusp of doing that specialized training. But now, man, it's really there. You can really share ideas. And there are a lot of people that, that will and do collaborate in the off season to enrich their own skill. I think that's the biggest difference is you're seeing a lot of this specialized training, not just for the guys that are coming out to get their football IQ up so they can join their team, but it's also for kind of like continuing education. So
right.
It's actually a really, really cool thing that kind of like to see.
Kev, there's been a lot that's happened in the NFC South this year. I mean, the Bucs won the Super Bowl, and they've seemingly brought their entire team back. I don't even know how they were able to do that. Drew Brees retires. Julio Jones gets traded to one-year-old teams in Tennessee. We got a new quarterback here in Carolina.
That's it.
I got a new quarterback here in Sam Darnold in Carolina. Like, where do you, in your eyes, as the guy who covers the league, the guy who's played in the league, where do you see the Carolina Panthers right now stack up in this NFC South?
The Carolina Panthers are really in a challenged position. They've got a couple of really, I think, established teams. You mentioned the Bucs. The Bucs and the Saints to me are top shelf teams.
Even without Drew Brees?
Even without Drew Brees. I mean, you have Jameis Winston and I try to tell people, man, like, you're dealing with somebody who's thrown 50 touchdowns in a season, okay, in this game. And I knew it coincided with 30 turnovers, but you can't tell me that Jameis can't sling it. You can't tell me with that defense, with Alvin Kamara and in the backfield, that this team isn't dangerous. You got a top 5 defense, that basically got them as far as they did. And Drew Brees didn't throw a pass over 30 yards. This is a real thing. There's a reason this team went to Taysom Hill and was better suited for him to take over than it is now. It's better suited to go to Jameis Winston now because they've retool the offense. Now they have a different directive. It was easier for Taysom Hill to step in and still do the same things from a completion and accuracy standpoint and decision-making standpoint that Drew Brees did last year. This team, to me, isn't going to miss a beat because they still have another capable quarterback who can do the things that Peyton wants to do. And actually, this will be more of what Peyton wants to do because it'll give them the ability to stretch the field that they haven't had in recent years. So you're dealing with them. You're dealing with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers who have all 22 back. I mean, this is a tough division. I mean, your outlook, if you're the Carolina Panthers, you are rebuilding. You've lost some coaches. You've lost some people here and there. There was a person who was Joe Brady's kind of right-hand man that was down at LSU with him, and his last name is Mangus. And he's actually my son's roommate's older brother, and he was with Joe Brady at LSU and then joined him when he came to Carolina. Now he's gone. So you have some of the offensive minds that have dissipated from this team. You've got a rebuilding process that has to take place. You have new continuity that has to be established, between Darnold and look, I'm all for quarterbacks and players of all types, shapes, and sizes getting second chances. I think, Darnold didn't get a fair shake, so to speak, because, he had a couple of different coordinators in a couple of years and things just didn't, so hopefully he's hit somewhere now where he can get some continuity going with this new staff. So I'm hoping, and I know they're positive as well, but you can't expect the outlook for this season to be that high. You're trying to be competitive, compete, and trying to get Darnold back on track for the future. This is a rebuilding year. Make no mistake about it. The expectations should not be any more than that, because I don't think you're going to get anything more than that with those two other teams that we mentioned in that division.
It's interesting you say that, Kev, because one of the narratives I've been sort of pushing, if you will, is Darnold has to be the right guy, because with the turnover in the division, this is a time to kind of take Tom Brady, for all intents and purposes, 2 more years max. I don't think it's going to be that long, but 2 more years max.
Right.
We know Matt Ryan's close to the end of his at least tenure in Atlanta.
Yes.
If Sam Darnold is the wrong guy and you got to reset again in 2 years, you fall back behind everybody else in the rebuilding process. And so I think what you just mentioned there, I've been bullish on the Saints becoming more of a defensive-based team over the last 2 or 3 years, and I think no one realized it because Drew Brees was still walking around.
Yeah.
And so, and that's why I think there's, and I hear the questions all the time, like, besides Sam Darnold, and I'm like, no, there is no besides. He has to be the right answer, or you have to start over again.
Yeah. Bridgewater's no longer there, right?
No, he's in Denver.
So you've already taken the other factor out of the equation who could possibly lead your team in that respect. He has to be the guy right now, because if you're able to retool and reset, which both the Bucs and the Saints are already doing. I mean, the Bucs drafted Trask last year. You've got a young, quarterback who knows how to bide his time and learn from someone else who's going to be poised to take over in a couple of years. You have a great team that's been assembled that you can't help but to think, man, the development of your younger intermediate players to step up, in the midst of all that continuity and veteran leadership you have there in Tampa. I mean, the outlook is as good for those teams as it is kind of going forward. I mean, the Saints are in the same vein as far as the design of their team. Their defense got better and better. You're really dealing with you got a lot of young and intermediate superstars who are in the meat of their career. I mean, Alvin Kamara is in his prime right now. You retool with a young quarterback, theoretically in a couple of years, that person can take that same team that still has a lot of that juice and go forward. Carolina's trying to build something right now. They have to do it with Sam Darnold or bust.
Yeah, and he's going to be compared to Justin Fields, I believe, for at least the next few years. His entire tenure in Carolina, as they passed on him in the draft. And J.C. Horn may be a good player. He may be good, but, he'll be compared to Fields in Chicago for years to come. And all eyes are going to be on Darnold and the left tackle position, and deservedly so. But Kevin, as a guy who played the position, I got to ask you about Brian Burns because his breakout 2020 was something to watch. I mean, the way he was able to get off the line so quickly and get into the backfield and get in the quarterback's face. What excites you about Spider Burns going forward, and who is now bookended with Hassan Reddick on the opposite side of that line?
Yeah, the thing that makes me excited about is they have established, well, he has established an identity for himself. Okay, within the league, within a particular scheme, and Reg knows what I'm talking about when I say this. There are different ways to find your craft and elevate your status as far as a player. You can become really good at one thing, and you can, but it doesn't matter if you're not allowed to utilize that one strength within your scheme. So someone has to believe in you and put you in a bookend situation with a guy like Hassan Reddick on the other side who can play a little bit more balanced football. You know, when you pair up these defensive ends, these bookends, if you will, there are identities that go along with it, and that's really an old school thing when you're talking about scheme and how to build things. I mean, Spider Burns. You know, when I evaluated him coming out of college, I said, man, you have a Simeon Rice in the make.
Oh, that's a good comparison.
You got a guy that can get upfield, who can knife up there, who's long and can be disruptive. But man, the worst thing you can do probably is run right at him. Okay, you know what I'm saying? And I don't mean, you know, with an old school pro set, he might be in trouble. But with all this, you know, pistol, you know, quarterback lifting the foot, quarterback, you know, clapping the hands together, standing back there in a shotgun with this new read option look that everyone's seeming to give these days. He can play this game because the offensive line's not you know, white knuckled and barreling forward. Okay, this is a different game that we're playing right now, so it kind of lends itself to his playing style. And this is no knock on Burns at all. Okay, different people have different strengths, and they're great for different reasons. Which is why I bring up Simeon Rice. Okay, Simeon Rice and I played at the same time. He's a guy who has more quarterback sacks than I do. Okay, he's a guy who, you know, who has a ring, who has every, you know, bit as deserving as all the accolades. He's in the 100 sack club and all that stuff. But he and I were completely different players, and we were great for different reasons. I was an every down defensive end, and I played the left side. I played to the quarterback in a team's traditional run strength in that era of football. And you had to be a guy who could play every down if you were going to be a successful left end. When you look at the left ends who played back then, you're looking at Robert Porcher, you're looking at Michael Strahan, you know, all the guys that I bring up, Reggie White, you know, there's some grown ass men on that side of the ball. It's a different game than playing on the right side of an offense's identity. That identity of your defensive linemen and how they play on a line in respect to how offenses work these days has changed. It's been modernized. So when I see Burns, I'm like, man, you know, there's almost nothing you can't do with the guy, because you basically just have to establish a niche and take advantage of his ability to get upfield and be disruptive. So that's why I like what he's doing, because they have carved out a way to utilize his talents, you know, at a paramount level. So it's exciting. You know, people are going to have to deal, and they're going to have to watch film and plan to stop, you know, Burns this year. They're going to have to, because he has put it out there, put it on film, that if you do not stop him, he is going to disrupt your backfield. He is going to throw a monkey wrench in your plan. He's going to get to your quarterback. So you know, he's a Florida State guy. You know, it's not a guy that I would have evaluated, you know, back when I was playing. I would have said, I would have liked to see some more better hand placement, like to see some lower pad level, a little more engagement on some of the blocks. Different game we're playing now. Burns is the game is tailor-made from him, you know, for him right now, and he's going to do a really good job. So,
Stu, I'm telling you, I've had these conversations with KC about football and technique and scheme and all that, and it's always a whole lot of fun. But I'm going to get to a couple of things that for people that are watching this Crown Score, that you'll see Kevin Carter's face light up here because I'm going to ask him about the aforementioned son of his, Zion Carter, who plays tight end at Dartmouth, as Kev mentioned. What's going on with his development? And I think the cool thing is, and I know this from knowing you personally, he didn't play a lot of football growing up, right?
No, he didn't play any football growing up. Funny enough, baseball, basketball, played on a national like Adidas team, played on the shoe contract circuit, AAU basketball. I mean, we were all over the country, playing in Bigfoot tournament, out in Vegas, Fab 48, all these big, things. And so we were all over the country every weekend, and that was sort of his jam. And I never pushed him into football, never, it didn't matter to me. The kid had an unweighted 4.0 at one of the top schools, private schools here in Florida. So I didn't give a crap what he did with his extracurricular time. I was just proud of him, for what he was putting forth. But his senior year, he decided to come out and play football. And I'm like, why? But some things are just in you, and he's been around it his entire life. And I think, in terms of football IQ, he got a lot of it by default over the years, whether he knew it or not. Played a lot of Madden and stuff, and being a basketball player and being 6'7" and whatever at the time, it was a natural fit to play tight end. I said, you know what, you can play one of two positions if you ever play football. You play quarterback or tight end. We're not doing any of this other stuff. I don't have time to teach you hand placement and gaps and old school, we have to go through that later. I'm like, if you're going to play, you got to represent, and you got to, he had to be able to come out there and just play fast and take advantage. And like we talk about, establish a niche for the skill set you have. Right. And so he came out and, kind of took to it like a duck to water, because we had a four-star kid out, and he lines up in Oklahoma drills. And I'm like, it doesn't matter whether he can catch a football or he can go up and box someone out and rebound and whatever. Football for him is going to be about whether or not he likes contact. Okay. Because there's got to be something in you that don't mind, actually likes and craves a little contact if you're going to be a good football player. And without that, I'm sorry, you can't step foot on that field. It's just kind of a rite of passage. So I was going to find out really quickly whether he liked football or not. And we found out on day one, and in full display as he destroyed this kid. And I had no idea that it was actually in him at the time. But long story short, fast forward a couple of years, he plays his freshman year up at Dartmouth, doesn't get on the field. He's really on scout team, kind of learning the game. But then, when COVID hit, he came home for spring break and never went back. And so we went back in the fall. The Ivy League, they canceled their schedule for the year. And blessings and curses. I mean, I feel so bad for the number of college and high school athletes that were caught up in our world-changing events that really threw off their timing and their own individual development. But, it's all in how you take it and how you use it, right? I say blessings or curses because for my son, he gets an extra year now, and he gets a year of extra year of development. The first time anyone sees him, which will probably be this fall, he's a new product. He is, he's 6'7" and he's 255 pounds, and he is found, and he runs better than I do. Like, and that's the thing. And Reggie knows what I'm talking about. Like, you got to have wheels in this game. And he can move. Like, one of the things that I had, I could run through 8 brick walls, and I could do it pretty quickly. But he can run like the wind blows, and he's got big hands. He catches everything. I've had him up, working with Randy Moss and with Yo Murphy. He's been training for all these years. But most recently, we went up to Greensboro, North Carolina, where I reconnected with a former Super Bowl champion teammate of mine, Ricky Prohl, who does, sports camps and trains a lot of kids. He's a former Carolina Panthers wide receiver coach on Ron Rivera's staff. And, that type of football knowledge and IQ, when you have a chance for your kid or your young protege to work with certain people, they can elevate their collective football IQ really quickly, especially someone that doesn't have any bad habits. So that's where we were all last week, couple of weeks ago. We took an entire week and worked with Ricky Prohl just on the fine art of route running, understanding how to receive the ball, evaluating coverage and, what it takes to get open, the timing and everything. And, and Ricky's one of the best, former position coach at that level, the wealth of knowledge. And plus, from a trust standpoint, there's not too many people that I trust to put hands on my son and give him that kind of guidance. And Ricky is one of the best. So look out this fall for Zion Carter up in the Ivy Leagues, tearing it up for Dartmouth football.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing his highlight reel. Hey, Kevin, one last question before you go. You mentioned Super Bowl champion. You reached the pinnacle of your sport. The night you guys won, what was like when you finally realized you won and they make that, and Kevin Dicey gets stopped at the goal line? What's that feeling like? What's the best story you have from that night? Your best memory, or from that night when you reached the pinnacle of your sport?
Oh man, the thing about that night is it was just as certain people had told me before. Different people, they try to impart wisdom upon you when you're about to achieve something great, or an anticipation or some type of advice to help you achieve something great. And, there were different people along the way that said things that really stuck with me, especially that season. Had a conversation with Howie Long as I was walking off the field of our walkthrough the day before the NFC Championship game. We're getting ready to play Tampa Bay. And he pulls me aside, as their crew is doing the game. And he and Marcus Allen are standing, and Marcus is laughing his butt off. Like, he's laughing his ass off because he knows that Howie's going to give me an earful. At this time, I'm 27 years old. I'm, considered one of the best defensive ends in football. I've led the league in sacks. I'm first team All-Pro. And he grabs me by my arm, man. He pulls me over and he's like, Casey, let me tell you something, man. He's like, I was a young player in this league once upon a time, and I looked around me and I saw guys like Marcus Allen, and I saw it. He just rattles off all these names, and I'm like, I know, I remember I was watching, I was a fan, and he's giving me this heart to heart, and he's saying, look, man, you got to go out there and make a memory. He said, you got one chance to do this. I looked around and I said, I thought for sure with the talent we have, with the dynasty we've created, we're going to go back, Kevin. He's like, in 14 years, I never went back. He says, go make a memory. He's like, just shaking me. I'm getting chills and I'm about to cry because, that's a great memory. And so, and like I said, Marcus Allen is he can barely contain himself. He's wiping his eyes and he's laughing because he knows that, and I can see myself. By taking out of body experience and look back at that, he's really telling me something that I don't quite grasp at the time. I don't understand the power of making that memory. I don't understand how pivotal that moment in time is in terms of cementing your legacy, being a part, etching your name in the books of history. How will they remember you? What did you do? You may have money, you may have fame, you may have whatever, but did you make that paramount memory? Those things on the shelf behind you, what I'm saying, they mean something to you. You know what I'm saying? You have a story that, or an instance or something, a wonderful experience behind each one of those trophies. Okay, there is meaning in things that when we create moments in time, and that was what he was trying to impart upon me in that moment. And I went out, we did it, made a memory, NFL films, everything is history, all the memories. The reason Kurt Warner's story, his rise from, grocery bagger playing for the Iowa Barnstormers to becoming our quarterback, that entire story is cemented and is special because we made it special. Right. Okay. The reason, that season sticks out for me personally is, I receive a gift on the table as I come home from this heart to heart with Howie Long. And I walk in the garage and I look on my dining room table and there's a gift box, and inside in that gift box, when I open it, it says, open me. And there's a pregnancy test inside. I find out I'm going to have my son the day before. Cow. Okay. So I'm getting chills. That conversation with Howie Long, like I'm talking, I'm this is moments in time, find out I'm going to be a father, led the league in sacks, created
Holy
memory,
cow.
won a world championship. I mean, I'm talking, these are moments in time, and going away from it means so much more. As the years have gone by, I have this memory. I have something that I share with a guy like Ricky Prohl that I can call him up at any time, day or night. I can, I'm broadcasting and I'm doing an East Carolina game, and his son Blake was getting off in that game, and I'm hyping him up. I'm talking straight trash on the broadcast. I'm giving straight props to my homeboy and his wife Kelly. I'm saying, I know they're so proud of Blake. Older brother Austin is a wide receiver for the 49ers. I mean, at the time, I'm talking, when you have that type of connection with people, when you've made that memory in time, that's why, my face will light up when I recount how special it is to have my son be imparted wisdom from someone like Ricky Prohl. There's a reason for that. And it goes back to the memory that we made so many years ago in Atlanta.
Man, that's amazing, man. I got chills listening to that story. Well, Kev, I mean, thanks for coming on, man. I could ask you a million questions about that Super Bowl year with the Rams, but thank you for coming on and spending some time with Reggie and myself. And we'll see y'all next week on the Crown Score podcast.
Let's do this again, man. Let's do this again. We'll get into
I would love to
get
absolutely
some specifics.
We will
give you my thoughts on every division in football.
Let's do it. Season preview with Kevin Carter. All right.
There it is.
Right on.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, KC.